Many Canadians recognize the name Laura Secord, synonymous with fine chocolates in Canada. Many people are unaware of her heroic trek that saved both Canadian and British forces at the Battle of Beaver Dams during the War of 1812. Laura Ingersoll was born in Massachusetts on September 13, 1775, to a wealthy family. Her father, Thomas Ingersoll, ran a prosperous business during the time of the American Revolution. Being loyal to the British Crown, though, following the achievement of independence in the United States and the economic depression that accompanied it, Thomas Ingersoll felt the lure of the cheaper land in Upper Canada. He packed up his family and moved to the Niagara area. Thomas Ingersoll later went on to found the town of Ingersoll in southwestern Ontario. Upon arriving in Upper Canada, the Ingersoll family settled in Queenston. Thomas opened a tavern, and it was there that Laura met her future husband, James Secord. The two were wed, and by 1812 the couple had 5 children, 2 servants, a modest house, and a successful clothing and household goods business. When the war against the Americans broke out, James was already a sergeant with the 1st Lincoln Militia. In October 1812, the Americans attacked Queenston, forcing Laura and her family to flee to safety.
I shall commence at the Battle of Queenston, where I was at the time the cannonballs were flying around me in every direction. I left the place during the engagement. After the battle, I returned to Queenston and then found that my husband had been wounded.
In the spring of 1813, the Americans were occupying the Canadian side of the Niagara River. All of the able-bodied Upper Canadian men were taken as prisoners of war and sent to the States. James Secord, still recovering from his wounds, was able to stay at home in exchange for billeting 3 American officers.
On the evening of June 21st, 1813, a number of American officers, including Cyrenius Chapman, commander of a group of New York cavalrymen, came here to the Laura Secord homestead looking for free food. As was the tradition of armies of the time, that the officers would often demand food from the local residents. So they dined here, knowing that Laura Secord, originally from the States, was relatively friendly with American soldiers, and her husband, James Secord, had been wounded the year before at the Battle of Queenston Heights, so was unable to cause a lot of trouble. While dining here, the Cyrenius Chapman, who had recently had a number of his soldiers captured by James Fitzgibbon, got to bragging about how he was going to turn things around for himself and the Americans here, and his plan of attacking James Fitzgibbon and his band of British troops out at Decoux House. Well, Laura Secord overheard this, and when the soldiers left, she told her husband about it, who was quite concerned, knowing that there was only a few British soldiers between here and the main British encampment at Burlington Heights up by Hamilton. Having a bullet through the knee at that time, James Secord obviously couldn't go anywhere, so the duty fell to Laura. The plan was that she would leave the next morning, heading for St. David's, where she would then inform her half-brother Charles Ingersoll of the American plan, and then he could carry the message further to Fitzgibbon.
Dressed in the regular attire of a settler's wife, she set off on a 19-mile journey. First she traveled to her brother Charles's home, where her niece Elizabeth joined her for a short while on her trek. Elizabeth gave up in exhaustion a few hours later. At that point, Laura had reached the most difficult leg of her journey, which led through swamp, brush, and farmland. The hot June sun beat down upon her, adding to her fatigue. As the sun set, Laura found herself surrounded by a band of Iroquois.
By this time, daylight had left me. Here I found all the Indians encamped. By the moonlight, the scene was terrifying, and to those accustomed to such scenes might be considered grand. Upon advancing to the Indians, they all rose, and with some yells said, "Woman!" which made me tremble. I cannot express the awful feeling it gave me, but I did not lose my presence of mind. I went up to one of the chiefs, made him understand that I had great news for Captain Fitzgibbon, and that he must let me pass to his camp, or that he and his party would all be taken.
After some hesitation, the chief consented and ordered one of his men to accompany her. 1 hour later, Laura Secord arrived at the British garrison near Beaver Dams, just in time to warn Fitzgibbon of the impending attack.
I told him what I had come for and what I had heard, that the Americans intended to make an attack upon the troops under his command, and would, from their superior number, capture them all.
Benefiting from this information, the British forces and their native allies surprised the Americans and won the day. Had the outcome at Beaver Dams been the opposite and the Americans had won, it is quite possible that the entire Niagara region could have fallen to American rule. Laura did not publicly record her story for many years. In 1860, the Prince of Wales paid a visit to Canada and heard an account of Laura's wartime adventure. Impressed by her courage, the prince rewarded Laura with a gift of £100. She was 85 years old. Today, with the War of 1812 long behind us, many people have forgotten the true story behind the name Laura Secord. Her courage, bravery, and loyalty to the crown played a significant role in the outcome of the War of 1812, and thus, in the history of Canada. Laura Secord, while quickly associated with chocolate treats, should never be forgotten as one of the true heroines of Canadian history.